Progressive Ambition and Unsatiated Lust. Delhi, Friday, 5th October, 1956. Series 10, edited and founded under direct order of His Divine Grace Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada by Goswami Abcharan Bhaktivedanta. The Supreme Lord is said to be Sachidananda Vigraha in the revealed scriptures. Sat means eternal. Chit means fully cognizant, and Ananda means joy, and Vigraha means specific personality. Therefore the Lord, or the Supreme Godhead, who is one without a second, is eternally a joyful personality with full sense of his identity. That is the nutshell description of the Supreme Lord, and no body is equal to him nor greater than him. The living entities, or the jivas, are so many minute samples of the Supreme Lord, and therefore we find in the activities of the living entities an urge for eternal existence, a hankering for knowledge of everything that be, and an urge for seeking happiness by diverse attempts in life. These three qualities of the living being are minutely visible in the human society, but they are increased and enjoyed in the proportion of 100 times more by other beings residing in the upper planets, called by the name Bhualoka, Swargaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Manaloka, Brahmaloka, etc. So in the material world, the highest planet, where the duration of life and standard of enjoyment are thousands and thousands times superior than what we enjoy on this earth, is also described as insignificant in comparison to the spiritual bliss enjoyed in the realm of impersonal Brahma, and the happiness of spiritual bliss enjoyed in the company of the Supreme Lord by his service in different mellows, makes the enjoyment of impersonal Brahman as much insignificant as it is a drop of water in the presence of the ocean. Every living being is ambitious to have the topmost level of enjoyment in the material world, and yet he is always unhappy here. This unhappiness is present in all the above-mentioned planets in spite of long life and standard of comfort more and more increased. That is the law of material nature. You can increase the duration of life and standard of comfort to your highest capacity, and yet by the law of material nature you shall feel unhappy. The reason is that the quality of happiness which is compatibly suitable for our very constitution is different from the happiness derived from material adjustment. The living entity is a minute particle of Sachidananda Vigraha, and therefore he has proportionately the necessary propensity for joyfulness, which is spiritual in quality, but he is vainly trying to derive it in a foreign atmosphere of the material nature. A fish which is taken out of the water cannot be happy by any length of earthly arrangement of happiness without any aquatic habilitation. It is said in the same way the minute Sachidananda entity cannot be really happy by any amount of material plannings conceived by the illusioned brain. The living entity, therefore, has to be rendered a different type of happiness called the spiritual bliss, and therefore our ambition should be aimed at enjoying spiritual bliss and not material happiness. Ambition for spiritual bliss is good, but the way of attaining this standard is never possible by negativating the material happiness. Theoretical negation of material activities, as was propounded by Sripad Sankaracharya, may be relevant for an insignificant section of men, but the best and the sure way of attaining this standard is chalked out by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by his cult of devotional activities, which changes the very face of material nature. Hankering after material happiness is called lust, and such activities are sure to be met with frustration in the long run. The body of a snake is very cool, and if a man wants to enjoy the coolness of the body of a snake and therefore garlands himself with such venomous snake, surely he is killed by the bite of the snake, which is naturally harmful. The material senses are compared with a snake, and to indulge material happiness is surely meant for killing one's spiritual identity. A sane man should therefore be ambitious to find out the real source of happiness. A foolish man who had no experience of sugarcane by shape or taste was told by his friend to have a taste of its sweetness. The foolish man inquired of the characteristics of a sugarcane, and he was imperfectly informed that sugarcane resembles the shape of a bamboo stick. The foolish man therefore began to derive juice from the dry bamboo stick, but as a matter of fact he was repeatedly baffled in his attempt to have a taste of sweetness from bamboo stick. That is the position of the illusioned living being in his search after eternal happiness in the matter which is not only full of miseries, but also the quality of material happiness is transient and flickering. In the Bhagavad Gita, the quality of the material world is described as full of miseries. The ambition of happiness is good, but to derive it from the inert matter by so-called scientific arrangement is an illusion. A befooled person cannot understand it. Driven by a lust of material happiness, he thinks as follows, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. Translation: a materialistic Ashura thinks, this much I have got today, this much I shall have again as I have desired. So much I have in my possession and that much wealth will be mine again. Purport: the atheistic or godless civilization being a huge affair of sense-gratifying business. Everyone is mad after money to keep up an empty show. Money is sought after by everyone because that is the medium of exchange for sense-gratificatory objects. To expect peace in such an atmosphere of gold rush pandemonium is a utopian dream. So long there will be a slight tinge of sense gratification, peace will remain far, far away from us. The reason is that by nature everyone is an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. He cannot therefore enjoy anything for his personal interest, but he can be employed in the transcendental service for the interest of the Lord. This alone can bring in the desired peace. A part of the body cannot itself be happy, but it can serve the whole body and derive pleasure out of that service only. But everyone is busy in self-interested business and nobody is prepared to serve the Lord. That is the basic cause of material existence. Beginning from the highest executive administrator down to the coolie in the street, everyone is engaged with the thought of unlawful accumulation of wealth. To work for one's self-interest is unlawful and destructive. Even the cultivation of spiritual realization for one's self-interest is unlawful and destructive. We have discussed this point already in the previous issue. Those who are engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord do unlawfully think that he has accumulated so much money today. That much money was accumulated day before and therefore the total money is accumulated to so much strength. He thinks unlawfully that so much money is in his possession now and it will be increased to such and such strength. As such, there is no dearth of money, but there is dearth of peace in the world. The whole human energy having been diverted to this money-making business, it has certainly increased the cheap money-making capacity of the total population, but the result is that such unrestricted and unlawful inflation of money has created a bad economy and has enabled us to manufacture huge costly weapons for destroying the result of such cheap money-making business. The authorities of big money-making countries, instead of enjoying peace, are now engaged in making important plans as to how they can save themselves from the modern destructive weapons, and as a matter of fact, a huge sum of money is being thrown into the sea for making an experiment on such dreadful weapons. Such experiments are being carried out not only at huge costs but also at the cost of many poor lives, binding there be such nations in the law of karma. That is the illusion of mother material nature. With an impulse of sense gratification, the money is earned by spoiled material energy and it is spent up also in as much as destructive energy of the human race. The energy of human race is thus spoiled by the law of nature because of its diversion from the service of the Lord, who is actually the Lord of all energies. Wealth and money is called and worshipped as Mother Lakshmi, or the goddess of good luck. The goddess of good luck is meant for serving the Lord Narayana, the emanation of all the Naras or living beings. The Naras are also meant for service of Narayana under the guidance of the goddess of good luck. The Naras or the living being cannot enjoy Mother Goddess of good luck, and therefore whoever may desire to enjoy her wrongly will be punished by the law of nature, and the money itself will become the cause of destruction instead of being the cause of peace and prosperity. Such unlawful accumulation of money is now being snatched away from the miser citizen by various taxing method of the state as contribution to the future civil and international war fund for spending the money in the spoiled manner. The citizen is no longer satisfied with money just to maintain the family nicely and for culturing spiritual knowledge, both essential in human life. He wants money unlimitedly for satisfying insatiable desires, and proportionately to this unlawful act, his accumulated money is now being snatched away by the agents of illusory nature in the shape of medical practitioners, lawyers, tax collectors, societies, constitutions, so-called sadhus, famines, earthquake and many such calamities. A miser who hesitated to purchase a copy of Back to Godhead by the dictation of illusory nature spent up Rs. 20,000 for a week's ailments and died at the end. A similar thing happened when a man who refused to spend a pie for the service of the Lord spoiled Rs. 30,000 in litigation affairs between members of the home. That is the law of nature. If money is not devoted to the service of the Lord, it must be, by the law of nature, spent up in spoiled energy in the shape of litigation or diseases as mentioned above. Foolish people have no eyes to see it and necessarily the laws of the Supreme Lord. The laws of nature do not allow us to accept money more than what we require for proper maintenance. There is ample arrangement by the law of nature to provide every living being with his due share of food and shelter, but insatiable lust of the human being has disturbed the whole setup of the Almighty Father of all species of life. By the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, there is the ocean of salt because salt is so much necessary thing to the living being. He has in the same manner arranged for sufficient air and light so essential for the living being. Anybody can collect any amount of salt from the natural storehouse, but constitutionally one cannot take in more salt than one barely requires. If he takes more salt, he spoils the broth, and if he takes less salt his eatables become tasteless. And if he takes only what he barely requires, the foodstuff is tasteful and he is also healthful. Ambition for wealth, for more than what we just require, is as much harmful as that of eating more salt than what we absolutely require. That is also the law of nature.